today, we'll be looking at the key features in the world of business. We'll look at the world of commodity markets, as well as the forex market. He says millions of jobs are at risk if debt ceiling is not raised in the US, and we begin from there. Americans agreed to raise the country's $31.4 trillion debt and the ceiling of it before a fast approaching deadline by demanding devastating spending cuts in exchange for raising the debt ceiling. The Biden administration and congressional Republicans have struck. The U.S. Treasury Department has indicated it may be unable to pay its bill as soon as June 1st. Let's hear from President Joe Biden.
Given to their threats and demands as to what they think. I'll tell you a story about what's going on. And they've taken control of the House. They've taken control. They have a speaker who has his job because he yielded to the, quote, MAGA element of the party by threatening to default on our nation's debt that we've already incurred over the last couple hundred years, unless we give in to their threats and demands as to what for a while, but now they refer to themselves as the MAGA Republicans. And they've taken control of the House. They've taken control of the political party has done in the nation's history. They're literally, not figuratively, holding the economy hostage by threatening to default on our nation's story about what's going on. There's a very...
That's the President of the United States of America. Let's move to the Africa to increase its ownership stake in the lender. This followed a calm and a claim by the billionaire businessman Femi Otedola that Olumolu had in the Nigerian stock market. This increased Olumolu's investment in UBA to 19.48 billion naira, with his shares in the bank rising. Based on the same day, his former business partner alleged that he double-crossed him on the UBA deal. Otedola said the UBA chairman approached him for financial support during the acquisition of the bank, talking about businesses in Africa and Nigeria. The majority shareholder of Geregu Power PLC during Exchange Limited on Wednesday, Otedola offloaded the shares in transaction that took place on Monday and Tuesday, and another 948,092 units at the rate of 290.7 naira through his own power distribution company, Amperian. So looking at businesses for a 2011 offshore oil spill that had a devastating long-term impact on the coastal area. The case was one of overseas conflicts and corruption related to the oil and gas industry. The action stemmed from the leakage of an estimated 40,000 barrels of crude oil off the coast of the Delta. A group of 27,800 individuals and 457 communities have been fishing, drinking water, mangrove forests, and religious shrines. But a panel of 5 Supreme Court justices, quite difficult for the communities. Still talking about oil. Nigeria's oil production is currently lower than its technical regulatory commission at a host communities sensitization workshop with the theme, the implementation of the host communities development and reduction in hydrocarbon funding arising from energy transition, among others. It would be a good time to the calendar this morning. Economic calendar this morning, according to Japanese index, have indicated bank lending year-on-year in Japan, especially for April. Actual came out at 3.2%, and previously the standard 0.1%. Previous standing was at 0.6%, and consensus perspective 0.4%, and focus 0.4%. Year-on-year came out at 2:30 a.m. at a negative 3.6%. Let's look at further statistics for the afternoon period. The of interest rate was at 4.25%, and the consensus was at 4.5%, focus 4.5%, according to expectations. Talking about expectations, the Bank of England is expected to raise the bank rate by 25 basis points to 4.5 as it continues to battle double-digit inflation. The annual inflation rate in the UK was 10.1% in March, which is 5 times higher than the central or soon pause the tightening cycle. Additionally, the Bank of England will publish its quarterly economic projections, and most investors anticipate an upward revision. Interest rates in the United Kingdom has been moving higher and higher, mostly being raised by 25 basis points as at April 2022 it stood below 1%, but went further upward by October above 4%, and the expectations are getting higher. In the US, inflation rates came out, expectations of 5%. Inflation is the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time. Food and shelter costs grew. Let's look at the chart indicating United States inflation rates. Inflation rates in the US has shown some ups but slight decline in recent times in October 2022, and by January 2023, 6.4%, and even coming further downward to 4.9%. The big question would be, can financial assets benefit from stagflation? That's the question. The US economy may be in the past, and which asset classes typically benefits from this rare economic phenomenon? Let's have insights from Jim Laurier.
Defined by stagnant growth, high unemployment, and high inflation. The most significant bout of stagflation we've seen was in the mid to late 1970s, as high oil prices fueled inflation. The reason for this seems simple. High crude prices were causing an economic slowdown, which opens the door to Federal Reserve stimulus and increased government spending. Profitable. Consequently, the liquidity that's injected in the system tends to shy away from traditional stocks, and gold is often the alternative beneficiary. Stagflation and gold performance during periods of stagflation is limited.
Thank you, Jim. When we talk about stagflation, it's similar to saying recession and inflation. It is a situation in which the inflation rate is high or increasing. So lower inflation may exacerbate unemployment. Let's move to Asia's economy now. China's inflation rate at lowest level in over 2 years. China's inflation rate fell to 0.1% in April 2022 from 0.7% in March, missing market estimates of 0.4%. This was the policy, with cost of both food and non-food easing further. Meanwhile, producer prices dropped the most in nearly 3 years, staying in deflation, seeing its ups and downs, previous standing at 2.1%, but went higher to 2.7%. And a slight decline before hitting a peak of 2.8% by October. Inflation has a decline to 1%, 0.7%, and then 0.1%, indicating the strength in Senegal eased marginally to 9% in April 2023, from 9.5% in the prior month. This was the lowest reading, housing and utilities, transportation, in March. On a monthly basis, consumer prices were up by 0.5% in April. Inflation in most African countries have seen the highs and lows. In Senegal, it wasn't any different. As of July 2022, inflation stood at 11%, indicating high costs of commodities and decline in the value of the currency of the country. As at October 2022, inflation went to 13% in Senegal, hitting a peak of 14.1% the next month. By December, it was 12.8%, January 2023, 10.6%, and a slight decline and hitting 9% in April, as a decline sets in as the market digests CPI, Consumer Price Index data. Let's hear from Dan Deming.
Initially reacting positively in today's metals markets. Let's take a look at silver futures as they're realizing some selling pressure today after initially reacting positively to the US spot 665. Now, intraday high of 26.20 was just after the release of the US CPI data. And then the markets started to digest it, and we did see some selling pressure in the metals markets, also selling pressure in the equity markets. And we're continuing to realize some weakness here as we move through the session. Now, it's the U.S. CPI data, highly anticipated, in line with expectations. The initial reaction is very positive in the metals markets, in other asset classes, equity markets. But now we're seeing selling pressure kind of continue to persist throughout the day. One area we're seeing strength is in the treasury markets, the positive reaction there, and the treasury markets are...
That was Dan Deming. Thank you for the outline regarding the market, the prices of silver, and the consumer price index, how it's affecting the market. Let's move to the metal market to see the indices in the morning market then. The metal market. The metal market has shown huge decline after the US inflation data came out yesterday, and the impact still continues today. Gold price, current price is $2,027 per ounce, dropping by 1.9 points. Silver also showing slight decline this morning. Copper also slight decline still, same story, dropping 56 points this morning, a negative 1.53%. Iron ore, no significant difference in the market, and lithium, similar story, no significant difference in the market. Let's look at the energy market next. The price of crude oil. Energy has shown some positivities this morning. Crude oil, the US crude, the West Texas Intermediate crude, $72 per barrel, upward by 0.4 points this morning. Brent crude, which is Nigeria's price benchmark, $77 per barrel, slightly upward this morning, but it's a similar story for the rest of the energy market. The agricultural market then. It's been mixed fortune for the agricultural perspective. Soybeans downward by 16 points this morning, wheat downward by 4.3 points, lumber in Malaysian ringgit per ton, cheese a little here, a little there, and milk a little there, a little here. And insights he has regarding the Bank of England. Jim Lorio.
7% against the US dollar, far outpacing the euro, which rallied 4.5% in the same time period. Now, the timing of the initial leg higher suggested fears over a potential U.S. banking crisis that began to surface on March 9th and remains unresolved. Now, the implications of the bank problems have added to the belief that the Fed is currently on pause and could potentially ease
the sector. Let's look at what the forex market indicates. The euro against the US dollar, and afterwards we'll look at huge decline, especially for the majors. The euro against the US dollar. Current price 1.09 for US dollar, equaling 1 euro. The pound against the US hugely. Let's look at Naira's perspective at the international and exchange window. 460 Naira equaling 1 US dollar, and 500. Interesting to look at. The Naira still struggling in the black market, moving away from the 743 point mark. 747 Naira equaling $1 at the buying rate, selling rate 700 euro to Naira, 810 Naira equaling 1 euro, and 795 Naira to 1 euro at the selling rate. Let's for Bitcoin. Current price for Bitcoin, $27,441 for 1 Bitcoin. A similar story for we draw the curtain in today's edition of Business 360 amid the concerns in the market as inflation uncertainties is within the US market. My name is Vlad Kim.